Results and what we can expect over the next 2 weeks, and I'm joined by Dr. Francoise Boucek, visiting research fellow at Queen Mary University of London. Dr. Boucek, thanks for joining us on Euronews tonight. So Marine Le Pen's success in the first round, it was underestimated. What's her appeal then to voters?
What appealed her to voters? Sorry, I didn't hear your question.
I was just asking you, Marine Le Pen has done better than expected in this first round. So what is her appeal to voters?
Her appeal to voters, right. Well, her appeal to voters, I think, rests a lot on the issues that she pushed towards the end of the campaign, the cost of living issues that resonate with a big segment of the population that constitute, core part of our support. The unemployed, the poor, the small businesses, small shopkeepers in the rural areas, people who are struggling and who feel sort of left behind by politicians in general and disconnected from the Paris elite, who they see as ruling. So I think there is that her message that she pushed towards the end of the campaign really resonate with those voters. So her appeal is very much there.
So Le Pen then tapping into discontent, but should she win this second round, what does a Le Pen presidency mean for European unity and security?
Well, it could be pretty disastrous, the worst case scenario, but so she is obviously has a very divergent view of the EU, Europe in general, than Macron, and she advocates no longer leaving the EU for France, but in effect, what she advocates amounts to pretty much that. So she she advocates the primacy of French law over EU law, which is the basis of the EU treaties. So it would go completely against the EU treaties. She advocates the renegotiation of EU treaties. I mean, there is no way any of the 27 members will want to revisit that. This would be like opening a Pandora box. And then in terms of defense, whereas Macron is pushing more and more towards more autonomy for the EU in terms of its strategic defense, she, on the contrary, would pull back and wouldn't necessarily leave NATO altogether, but would want to leave the military aspect of NATO, perhaps in the way that de Gaulle did in the early part of the 60s and during the 70s, when France was quite autonomous in terms of its military policy, but was still part of NATO in terms of the political arm of NATO. So was still part of the discussions, but had its own defense force, autonomous from NATO. So I think she may be thinking more along those lines.
And Dr. Boucek, can you see Marine Le Pen picking up those first round votes that went to the hard left candidate Mélenchon? He obviously told his voters not to do it, not to give her even one vote, but could she?
Well, she has a mountain to climb over the next 2 weeks if she wants to convince Mélenchon's supporters to join her. There may be a small percentage, but I think overall they will more lean towards Macron or abstain altogether. So I don't think she has very much to gain there. Macron will also find it a bit of a hurdle to convince them because he has shifted so much to the right. So I'm afraid we might see not as much participation from those voters that in the first round. So that's the big question, how much what will happen to that 20% of the vote that went to Mélenchon.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to wait and see. Dr. Francoise Boucek, thank you so much for joining us on Euronews tonight. Thank you so much. Now,